So in my last video, you might have seen some kind of interesting maneuvers that I did, kind of like this one here, where I almost seemed to make little weird light animals using a various array of changes in my fingers, kind of connecting them in weird little strange ways that help to create these creatures. Now, creatures aren't as commonly used by many glovers, but they are like a really, really neat thing you can throw into a show that add onto your show in a little bit of a weird sort of way. I mean, you have your typical finger rolls, like I'm kind of demonstrating here, but you can also throw in some really odd tempo changes, different light patterns, and just weird little light hand animal things that can add to a show and make it a little more strange and interesting and different. So let's get into how I do some of mine, how you can do them, and what kind of glove sets you can use to further accentuate them. I hope this is helpful, and if anyone has any questions or doesn't quite get something, feel free to rewind at any point to go back to something you didn't understand. Hello everyone! So following up on my Gloving 101 video, which I will link below in the description, I want to give you guys a few more tips for how to get started on upping your gloving game, getting into gloving, or just trying to figure out what all of the different moves are. So for this video, I will be Paulus, so I can show you all the different moves. My fingers don't look as gross now. So essentially, some of the techniques I'd like to show you relate pretty closely to creatures or morphing, or more of like an old school-ish approach to actually gloving in general. So the first thing with creatures that are really interesting to actually think about is where you start a creature. So typically when you have your hands out and you're doing either like a digit move with your fingers, or if you're like finger rolling around, something you can use as a cool transitional piece or just as a really interesting thing to add to your show is a creature. Now creatures differ a little bit because unlike a typical move like this, which is a bit more of a digit, instead of emphasizing just movement, you're also creating really, really weird shapes. So one of the creatures that's really easy to start with for anyone is just a butterfly. It seems simple, but it can add a lot to a light show if done correctly. So the easiest way to start a butterfly is you have your two hands, and what you're gonna do is make your thumbs best friends, and then use these fingers to articulate the wings of the butterfly. Pretty simple, right? You can do it either way. You can also break from one butterfly, switch around, and articulate a second. You can do it this way, so you can actually see the movement in a different angle. Or you can also flip to your pinkies here, and now you have a very different butterfly right here. Now you'll notice my thumbs are static when I'm doing this. Part of the reason I like to do that is I can also put these up and down. I can do weird things here. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with that. So as a basic starting point, I'd say the butterfly approach is a really easy way to get a handle on a simple creature. And it's just a good way to figure out the bare bones basics. Now, if you want to go a little farther than that, another thing you can do is actually building from this position here and start to manipulate your fingers in different ways that make stuff look kind of weird. Like you can see here, I have these fingers connected, this finger touching here, this finger touching here, pinkies are friends down here, thumbs are out like this. And this makes kind of an interesting creature you can bring into the face and then articulate those and bring it back. You can also switch it back here so it's like this. And then your interesting viewpoints can be these two fingers moving together or these fingers switching up and down. Now I could teach you every single creature that I know, but that would take a while. So probably the best way to start is start with those easier butterflies, really get the fluidity down with those. Try these butterflies, try adding some interesting elements like crossing these fingers and moving these and these. You can also connect these down here and kick them like that, and then switch these. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with creatures, which is why I love them so much. And they can make for a very interesting slow approach where you can really make it weird as all heck. You can just kind of go anywhere with them. And it's really fun and it's really cool. So if you want to see some other basics that I did other than creatures, again, the Gloving 101 video is in the description. But this is just a starting point if you have never really tried a creature before, and you know how you can go about it. One thing you might not realize when you're first learning is, you know, how lights actually affect the way a lot of these look. Now, I myself use lights that rely on speed controls. My significant other just uses basic one mode on-off lights that are good for conjuring and making lights appear and disappear. But one thing to keep in mind if you are going to use gloves is how lights can really impact the performance you're giving. Now on this hand here, I have my significant other's one modes that are just set to a very pretty pink, blue-yellow strobe. Just very simple. You can whip them all around. They aren't going to change on you. There's no speed controls in these. And these are more of like a really good starter or basic pair that are pretty reliable and they're not going to die on you anytime soon. You have like really pretty color options. This one comes with 3, but he's actually set them to just turn off and on with this one color. Now on this hand, I have my own set of eMazing Light Spectras. They're a Bluetooth programmable set. And one thing you're also going to notice that's different on these two is these have custom diffusers that have been shaped into a claw, and these do not. These are standard, come with the gloves when you buy them, open diffusers. You can see it's just very simple. Whereas these, I can get them all on. Yeah, these are very different. So when I move, these ones actually change. And you'll notice from the trails, they look a bit different. These are also set to not be as bright, so in dark lighting, it's a little bit more of a difference. Maybe, nope, here, against the black background. There you go. There you go. So they do look very different. Now, just so you can see these a bit clearer, what I might do is switch the modes later on so you can tell. But, you know, with some of those creatures we went over earlier, so something like a butterfly, you'll notice as I articulate each finger, the effect is a little bit different. So with the standard side, oops, bought myself in the nose, you're not going to see any light changing. It's just kind of like an articulated movement. But with this side, what you'll notice is as you speed up, the colors will change and then they'll go back into the first pattern or set. This is something you can set on the actual Bluetooth programmable, and it does kind of affect the way your shows look. Now, the other move that I like to do, this kind of creepy crawly overhand butterfly, you'll notice, at least up close, that the side that has the claws has almost this more like creaturey, claw-like weirdness. And with the actual speed control, it does change lights. But on the normal side, just regular articulation, nothing too crazy there. And then even if you do this pattern, this little finger here just kind of looks normal. And then this one looks a little bit creepier because you have that little claw protrusion there. And then with the actual thumbs that you can manipulate, this one you can see a bit more clearly because of how bright that light is. But this one kind of like disappears a bit, especially if you hold it still. It just goes back to that blue-white pulse. Now, starting from this position, oh gosh, these are so bright. Starting from this position, if you're going to do one of those interesting maneuvers where you move your fingers around and create like new shapes, you're going to see on the bright side over here, it's very, very clear. So whoever is viewing your light show can very clearly see what you're doing. And as you switch and switch this, it's very easy to see the movement. Now on this side, as you choose to articulate specific parts of that creature, that controls where the users, or the person that's actually watching the show, where their attention is kind of centered. yeah, depending on which glove set you decide to go with, if you do want to use lights, basically the set will greatly impact your show. You might not think that it will, but you know, having different settings and different speed controls or no speed controls or certain light patterns or just a solid light does really change the way stuff looks, not just for creatures, but for everything. So if you are going to buy a set of lights, I've linked the two sets that I showed in this video in the description, so hopefully that helps. And as you go to develop your own creatures, remember if you do borrow something from another performer, or you know you want to take an exact creature from someone else that you've seen do it before, do credit them. Don't verbatim steal their exact move. I'm showing you a lot of mine just as a building block so you can grow and learn to create your own. But yeah, don't steal moves. That's not super cool. But you know, use mine as building blocks to develop your own, and I think that'll really help your gloving long term. And I hope this video was super helpful for you guys. I figure I just finished it up with a teeny tiny little light show showing some of those weird little creatures that I kind of doodled around with in gloves, and hope you guys have a great day.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight.